Good morning, everyone. While the UK budget was bad news for property investors and for second homers, there was less to impact the many of us who are just the one residential homeowner. And I do think that there is another topic that we are being distracted away from that could have really far-reaching consequences for the entire UK property market, not just landlords and buy-to-let investors. And that is the escalating situation in the Middle East. An escalating conflict in the Middle East will have a significant impact on the UK residential market, with those impacts largely coming from oil prices, from investor confidence, from migration patterns, and from monetary policy shifts, and each of them influencing demand and affordability in different ways. So let's take a look at each of those in a little bit more detail. Firstly, oil prices. Although we've been very lucky to date with oil prices and they have been resilient to conflict so far, I don't see that continuing and lasting out forever. And it could very well be that this leads to substantial hikes in energy costs, not just for oil, but also for gas, for transportation, for various goods, of course, that are dependent on oil and petroleum inputs, as they're called. And these increased costs would contribute to potentially higher inflation in the UK. And in turn, higher inflation, as we know, leads to a rise in household costs, leads to a reduction in disposable income and decreasing affordability for potential homeowners. Rising costs of living, particularly energy and fuel prices, mean households might find it harder to save for deposits or to service mortgage repayments, and thus dampening housing demand, property demand. Additionally, elevated oil prices can directly impact building materials too, and construction costs, and potentially this would then slow down housing projects and affect the supply side of the market as well. So that's oil prices. The second one to consider is interest rates and their effect on mortgage costs. Very well covered, I know, but it is crucial. So central banks will often respond to inflationary pressures by raising interest rates. And if conflict in the Middle East exacerbates inflation, then the Bank of England will likely choose to pause those anticipated rate cuts and even hike them the other way. And this would increase borrowing costs, directly impacting mortgage rates. Higher mortgage rates could deter first-time buyers and, of course, make financing more challenging for existing homeowners as well, looking to remortgage. Rising interest rates can also slow down the housing market. We know all of this, of course, by cooling demand, as potential buyers might postpone purchases in the hope of further rate or future rate reductions. And of course, homeowners with variable rate mortgages or those nearing the end of their fixed term deals would face higher monthly repayments too, so potentially leading to, unfortunately, increased arrears and a dampening of consumer confidence. So that's the second one. The third one would possibly be a positive one, and that would come in the form of an increased demand from global investors. So particularly if Trump were to win in the US, but also with conflict arising in the Middle East, then political instability and volatility often prompts global investors to seek safe havens elsewhere for their assets, and UK property has long been a favoured choice for international investors, particularly from the Middle East, from Asia, but also from the US as well. So increased turmoil could actually drive wealthy investors to shift their assets into the relatively stable UK market, and of course especially into high value residential properties and areas. This influx of foreign investment may increase demand for luxury properties and potentially not just stay there, but also have a spillover effect into the mainstream market, particularly in regions or properties considered secure investments. On the other hand, the domestic market may become less accessible for local buyers as prices rise due to increased foreign competition. This influx could also put upward pressure on rental markets if foreign buyers are investing in buy-to-let properties, for example, rather than in occupying them, leading to potential price appreciation in both purchase and rental markets. And fourthly, let's consider the potential for increased migration and housing demand. So yes, escalating conflict can, as we know, trigger population displacement that is as old as time itself. And the UK may see an increase in asylum seekers and migrants from those affected regions. And if the UK government responds by accepting more refugees, then this would raise demand for housing, particularly in urban centres. The social housing sector, which as we know is already under extreme pressure, might struggle to accommodate these additional demands, indirectly affecting the private rental sector as well. So increased migration could thus lead to a boost in demand for rental properties, potentially driving up rents in an already strained market. This surge could benefit landlords, but also exacerbate affordability issues for tenants, especially in cities with high migrant populations such as London, Manchester and Birmingham. So all in all, my summary of the situation: increased conflict in the Middle East will, I'm sure, create a mixed but broadly negative outlook for the UK property market. Rising inflation and interest rates may dampen housing affordability, whilst a potential influx of foreign investment could inflate some property values. Higher migration levels might also increase rental demand, but the strain on social housing resources would be there as well. So the net effect, I think, would likely be a polarization of, or a further polarization of, an already polarized property market, as if we needed any more of that, where high value areas see gains and affordability issues are there and deepen for local buyers and renters too. So a very mixed bag, and my fingers are very much crossed, as I'm sure yours are, for a safe and swift resolution to the conflict in the Middle East. Bye for now.